Hey everyone, this is Matt Gross. I just wanted to make a quick little video here about what I'm noticing a relationship here between the surface, what we're seeing at the surface, and what we are seeing at the 500 millibar level here with the upcoming storm. And I think something is really interesting in how a lot of what the GFS just did at OZ or 0Z makes sense, and I find it just fascinating to watch this little relationship here. So I wanted to run through this quickly. Right here, hour 42, we've got this is valid on Thursday afternoon. We've got the surface low, according to the GFS, is in Illinois here to the southwest of Chicago. And where I think this gets interesting is start comparing the surface low here to the 500 millibar low here. And what you're going to notice is that that surface low corresponds to this little piece of 500 millibar energy that is running out ahead of the main trough. This is what it's picking up on. I can run it back here a few frames back here to hour 30. There's just kind of little junk energy, or what seems like junk energy, running out ahead of the main trough. But as you just kind of move it forward, this here by hour 42, this is where it's picking up on that surface low, and that's where it's forming it. Now, other models like the NAM and the RGM are actually forming it even further north than this, so it's picking up another energy here. So, while you have this energy digging down here toward the Mississippi River Valley, the low itself at the surface does not form down here. But what's going to happen as we run through this storm, as we run through the model run here, the energy at the base of this trough is going to become extremely potent. And that's kind of where you wonder if you're going to get multiple lows and things that start to transition. And if that happens, you're just going to have all-out chaos in the atmosphere. So run this forward a couple more frames here. So we're going to jump in here to 2 frames here to hour 48. This side here, Storm Vista, jumps forward in 3-hour frames. The other one here, Tropical Tidbit, jumped forward in 6. So we're going to go forward once here, and we're again at hour 48. So now the low is over Indianapolis. And if you start to compare this to what's going on at 500 millibar, you see that corresponds to this piece that's reaching out ahead here. Again, this was the energy that was sitting out over Illinois. It then runs over into Indianapolis. And again, all of this energy is racing in behind. Go through a couple more frames. Now watch what happens here. By this point, all of this energy is in the Tennessee Valley is racing eastward around the base of this trough. Meanwhile, the surface low, which is already formed, is way up here. So you've got this closed off, this 500 millibar low that's closing off back over here, phasing into this energy on the southern end that's racing around the base of the trough. And then the surface low is back up here. Now again, look what's going on up here where Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan meet. Not much at this point, but that's exactly where the low is going to be. If we run this forward, again, hour 54 here, hour 54 there. The surface low is just to the east of where Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio meet. Nothing is going on, surface low-wise, at the base of this trough yet. And this is what we've seen in a lot of models where this low just is dominant and stays dominant up here in the Great Lakes. But the GFS did something in the frames after this that I think kind of makes sense. It's really extreme, but if you watch this unfold, it doesn't seem that outrageous. Whoops, so let me go back over here to the 500 millibar map. So again, here's hour 57, hour 60. Now look what happens here. You can start seeing the tip of this extremely potent energy moving into western Virginia, eventually to central Virginia, just to the west of Richmond. This is now the energy racing around the base of the trough, kind of forming a point here, where it reaches these heights that are almost for vertical, it's running north-south, but it's about to change direction. And this is where we can really start to see a ton of 500 millibar energy consolidate. And this is where, when we jump the surface map ahead, 6 hours now, zooming a little closer, look what happens here at hour 60. So nothing really going on back here. Remember the surface low over here at hour 54. Jump it forward 6 hours to hour 60. Your other low is still up here in Michigan, right? Going back over here. Other low, it's still kind of stuck back up over here at the top of this low because all the other energy has outraced it to the south. But back here, we've got this tip where all this energy is consolidating. The GFS starts to pop a second low down here, right to the west of Richmond. And this is where I think it's very possible you're going to have something like that happen. Now, this new low is not going to track up toward the northeast, toward the Gulf of Maine, like you normally would expect a low to do in the situation. Even with all this energy, you just see racing east. If you look at the last few frames, you say, wow, that thing's racing east. That's going to go right off, toward the benchmark or towards the Gulf of Maine, but it doesn't, because what's going to happen is, as this energy runs around the base of this 500 millibar trough that's closed off, it's going to run around like a donut. So it's, or basically a NASCAR running around a track. And so what's going to happen here, if we go a couple more frames forward, watch this energy that had been racing east now starts to churn north. Look at that surge northward. And if there's any bit of a low near Richmond at that point that starts to pop, like the GFS shows, watch what happens. So in just those 6 hours, boom, boom. Now watch what happens here on the eastern side near the Pennsylvania-New York border at the surface map when we play this through. So back again. Here's your low in Richmond. We're going to go forward one frame. Boom. 976 millibars. An absolute bomb. The other low, the original low, has occluded back over here, back over Richmond. So back over Michigan, excuse me. So back over here, right? It's just kind of sitting there. So it's kind of stuck at the top of this 500 millibar low, not really doing much because it's just sitting up here. It doesn't really have anywhere to go. And when the secondary low pops through, all this energy it starts taking over. And this corresponds to the surface low. Again, this is another angle of it from the wide angle. That original low back here, new low pops at Richmond, and then boom, it raises up. It doesn't actually show the surface here. It doesn't show up, but you can see here the 978 millibar ring here. That's why this map is, I think, preferred, because you can see them both together. And what's eventually going to happen is this low is going to become dominant. So if you watch here, 2 more frames at 500 millibar, this energy at the eastern end of the 500 millibar cutoff, it is trapped inside this cutoff. It can't go anywhere. So the low actually is going to retrograde back into Canada, back towards the Great Lakes in Ontario, because it has nowhere to go. It can't keep going east like it has been. It's going to run around this 500 millibar cutoff. As we put that in motion, boom, boom, you can see now that energy is raced around to basically what it amounts to be 12 o'clock inside this circle. And now, where do you think our new low is going to be? Right? Look here, north of Lake Ontario. And we're going to run this forward, 6 hours. Boom. North of Lake Ontario, a 962 millibar bomb. And that all happened in 12 hours back. 6 hours back, 12 hours. Again, 2 frames. From this little piece here that formed maybe 993 millibars. Boom, boom. 30 millibars in about 12 hours. Kind of makes sense, though, doesn't it? Because all of the good energy at 500 millibar is racing around on the southern side and then the eastern side of this 500 millibar cutoff. And well, all of the models have this initial energy forming back over here out ahead of it. It's only going to take a little spark to light this fire ablaze. And if it does, you could easily have a secondary low forming on the southern and then eventually eastern end of this cutoff. Now the question is, how far south does that low form, if at all, if it even forms at all, and then how much does it bomb as it heads north around the eastern side of this? There's a potential for something really severe if it happens, and then there's all sorts of other implications. This does not mean it's going to snow on the I-95 corridor unless it's some very, very brief stuff on the back end, and even there, that's probably pushing it. But it does mean you're going to have some really, really extreme things possibly happen if the GFS solution here at 0Z is right. And again, it kind of makes sense. That's just something I'm watching. I want to see more of it in future runs. I'm interested to see how this progresses, and that is all for now. So hope you all have a great night, and looking forward to tracking this thing over the next couple days.